Hey everyone, today's video is slightly different. This is the video just to quickly go over the Windows 11 actual requirement and what is Windows 11, alright, at least from my perspective. You've been seeing a lot of this online for sure. If you're part of any Facebook groups or you keep up with just daily tech feed, that this PC cannot run Windows 11. Now, for the majority of the DIY space, which is, I assume, my audience, unless your computer is fairly old, I'm talking really old, as in 4 or 5 years, this is probably not the case. The reason why you're getting this message is related to some security requirements for Windows 11, right, which we'll get into. Now, quickly, what is Windows 11? In my opinion, Windows 11 is a feature level of Windows 10, right? So if you open any Windows 10 machine and you come here and you type WinVer, you're going to get the Windows version, right? So this right here is 20H2, all right? So Microsoft has this, what they call branch updates, all right? So normally every year we get 2 branch updates, one in the spring and one in the fall, right? So when Windows first launched, I don't remember the Windows version, I don't remember exact version number off the top of my head. When Windows 10 first launched was many years ago, and I think it was 15 something, maybe a little older than that. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. But since then, many features have been added to Windows 10, right? So Windows 11 should be kind of like a certain feature level of Windows 10 and then having new features added onto that and called Windows 11, right? Microsoft already does this in the server space, okay? So we're gonna click out here for a second, and if I were to look up Windows Server 2021, okay? So let's see. This it's Windows Server 2022. All right, this is already in beta, but I can tell you right now, this is probably very similar to Windows Server 19, which was very similar to Windows Server 16, right? Windows Server 19 was essentially, I believe, 1809 and up of Windows 10 base, right? So Microsoft does this. This is pretty much marketing. Under the skin, it's not much different than Windows 10, just with additional features added on. Now, how important are those features, such as direct storage, and how much they matter, we don't really know, because Microsoft likes to bring up a lot of features, but the follow through may or may not be strong. And the effect of those features on you daily as a user may not be so great either, okay? But they like to sell a lot of features. How many of them are actually used in real life? Who knows? That depends on you, it depends on your organization, etc. So getting back to Windows 11 and this message. If we were to look at the Windows 11 hardware requirements, we would see that it requires a 1 gigahertz processor, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and storage 64 gigabytes, graphics card compatible. It's all very basic. But the big one that's giving a lot of people issues right here is UEFI secure boot capable and trusted platform module version 2.0. Right now, 2.0 is a soft requirement. All right, 1.2 being the hard requirement, right? Which means you must have at least 1.2. Now, 1.2 TPM was already a requirement for certification in 2015 for Windows 8.1 machines. Right? What does that mean? If you see the Windows 8 sticker, official sticker on a laptop, that means that device at least has TPM 1.2. All right. So the next thing that have people consider, on their minds is the supported list of processors. Okay. So when we come here to the Windows 11 supported list, we will see that anything before 8th gen Intel, it doesn't seem to be supported, and anything older than Ryzen 2000 series does not seem to be supported. Now, I haven't tested that, so I couldn't tell you. But I think the reasons for that are not so much the fact that the CPUs themselves are not supported. It may just be the fact that those boards the motherboards for those systems, may be old enough that they still run an old BIOS system, okay, rather than a UEFI BIOS. Now, coming back to the hardware requirements, right? So what exactly is this UEFI and secure boot, right? Many of you have probably been introduced to the concept of a UEFI BIOS. Okay, UEFI is pretty much a framework. All right, you can think of it as a standard, how things should sit between your operating system and platform firmware. Okay, in this case, operating system being Windows. Now, UEFI is a little bit different than the traditional term BIOS, right? So it has more, it supports a lot more features and it's more secure than the old traditional BIOS. Um, Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing about UEFI versus BIOS, right? But UEFI allows for secure boot. And what is secure boot? Secure boot is to protect the system before Windows loads, right? So for your average home user computer or whatever, you have antivirus, right? But antivirus does not protect you before Windows loads. This is where something like secure boot comes into place, right? So this makes sure that you don't have a rootkit installed or you don't have a modified BIOS that's being loaded, stuff like that. That is where secure boot comes in. Now, secure boot also works in hand with a TPM module, all right? So what does the TPM module do in terms of Windows? Okay, mainly two things. Number one is health attestation for secure boot, right? Without going into too many details, you can think of this as running through a checklist of everything's okay and you're good to go, right? So that's what the TPM module will do, right? And the other reason for a TPM module is BitLocker encryption. Now, BitLocker is not new. That's been around for quite some time with Windows. So if you have BitLocker encryption on your hard drive enabled, you're already using a TPM module. Okay. Now, a TPM module can be something on board that's already built into your motherboard. It could be something that's on the CPU itself, like AMD FTPM, or it can be a chip that you buy and insert into your motherboard. Okay, so let's take a look at that real quick. We're just gonna look up TPM motherboard. I don't know. Excuse my typo here. Horse. Okay. It depends on the manufacturer, but I can't seem to find a photo of it. But normally there is a slot for a TPM module if it's not already built in on the motherboard. You will have to look in, check with your motherboard manual for the TPM and how to enable it. It's a little different per machine. But yeah, here we go. This is a TPM module that you would insert onto a slot on your motherboard if it's not built in. Okay, so varies per board. Now, right here, we're going to do a little quick demo. This is a virtual machine, okay? It is extremely low spec. It's granted, it's 6 gigabytes of RAM, 100 gigabyte virtual disk attached, and it's a quote-unquote 6 core, all right? So if I were to do this check now, the very first thing I'm going to get is TPM 2.0 is a requirement for running Windows 11, all right? Now, you can go, well, how do I know I even have a TPM to enable? Well, that's easy. If you were to come to open the TPM snap-in, so I do tpm.msc, I'll open the snap-in for TPM, and you can see it says compatible TPM cannot be found, all right? So what we can do here is, since this is a virtual machine, I know how I can enable it. I'm just gonna first stop this virtual machine, okay? It's gonna do a hard turn off. And if I open my Hyper-V Manager and I come to settings, I mean, if you have a desktop, you will do this a little differently. You'll go into your BIOS. Now, right in here in security, you'll see I already have secure boot enabled, and it uses a template for Microsoft Windows. All right, so these are a little different. These are for different standards. But if I were to check enable TPM, all right, you can see it even says here, is special purpose microprocessor which provides cryptographic services to computer platform. All right, so this is a software-based TPM since it is a virtual machine. All right, so I'm gonna click OK, and then once I come back into here and I connect again, all right, so now I'm booting Windows 10 back up, and then I'm gonna see if I can pass the health check. Now, secure boot by default is not enabled for most people's BIOS, right? We have to understand that when Microsoft went up there and showed off Windows 11, their target audience is not you, the DIY guy. Okay, their target audience is OEMs, okay, and enterprise. Okay, so why is it important to have secure boot and a TPM module? This essentially makes it so that companies and the, for example, the workstations from Dell and the laptops from Dell, HP, etc., that when they're sold to be deployed into enterprise environments, that they have with Windows 11 already a TPM module and secure boot enabled. This raises the security baseline for any organization. Okay, so there are many organizations already that have secure boot implemented and they already have TPM modules in all their devices. For the system integrators, HP, OEMs, and stuff like that, they can essentially push a tool that will enable that just by running it. You know, you run an exe, and then it will enable secure boot and enable the TPM in the BIOS without the enterprise people having to go from machine to machine to doing this. Okay, now you as the DIY user, you're responsible for doing this, and therefore that's just your job. So when people go, oh, the hassle, can you think about all the people? No, they're not thinking about that, because that's not the concern. The concern is the enterprise and the pre-built machines that are going to be sold, right? So you took a DIY approach, therefore this is a DIY approach for you. Okay, so sorry about the updates, you know how it is. This machine is not managed updates, kind of just does it when it wants to do it. But that is essentially why when Microsoft goes and talks about Windows 11, you as a DIY user should not freak out and think about all the implications it has. Also, if we were to look at the Windows 11, we already know there's going to be a Home Edition, a Pro Edition, etc., and we don't know what the requirements for each of those are going to be, and they may change. All right, for us folks in the IT space who administer these systems, I believe the support time frame. Okay, let me change this to an enhanced session. The support time frame is going to be the same as Windows 10. And Windows 10 won't kind of go out until 2025, and for folks using Windows 10 Enterprise, I'm sure it stretches out maybe even a little longer than 2025. Kind of all in the air, right? Microsoft kind of can change things at any moment. So let me find that Windows tool. Where's that? I don't know where it went. It was on my desktop earlier, but let's see. So worst case, I'll reinstall. Yeah, I'll just reinstall. Darn it. Since I can't even find out where it went. Okay, so now let's try this again. And now suddenly I can run Windows 11. Now, mind you, this is a virtual machine with, not exactly high spec, okay? So this is why you have issues running and passing the health check, is because you don't have secure boot enabled and you don't have TPM enabled. So I hope this video helps and clarifies things a little about Windows 11. I would say, as the DIY user myself, I'm not in a rush to, for example, jump on this bandwagon. If it's anything like everything else Microsoft makes, it always sounds great, but in practice, it's going to be buggy, and there is no real benefit as an end user to go jump onto Windows 11. There's nothing outside of, I guess if you don't want to run BlueStacks anymore to run Android apps, but there's nothing there, even stuff like, storage space direct. That's not, even as a gamer, that's not going to make a huge world of difference, at least from what I can speculate. But it may, but who knows, right? All of this is kind of out there. I don't foresee most people upgrading to Windows 11 until, maybe next year, even the DIY space. You have to remember that it's still Windows 10 under the skin at the end of the day, right? It's nothing new. And Microsoft says it's a free upgrade. Well, I can tell you this. Microsoft is not in the business of selling you operating systems anymore, right? Microsoft is in the business of licensing software as a service. So when we come to things like Windows Store, right? think it might even. This is how they make money. You see how they add this weather widget here, and you click on it, and you get all these, ads and all these websites. This is how Microsoft plans to make money, not by selling you an operating system. Why do you think you can activate Windows 10 with the Windows 7 key? Right? It's the same concept. They're trying to sell software as a service, not software itself. Okay? And if you look at Microsoft 365, it's the same concept. Office as a service, not Office as a software directly sold at a set price. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you guys around. And that's it. And thanks for watching.